My people's been here for many, many years. My name's Earl Baldwin, and I can trace all the way back to the Cherokee and the Irish that came over during the potato famine, you know. They mix in the Scotch-Irish, mix in with the Cherokee. In the 1600s, they started moving in late 1600s, early 1700s. And you can trace back in my family tree all the way back to both. And when you mix the two of them together, this is what you get. Okay, it's somebody look kind of like me, you know. This is East Tennessee. It's how we talk here. Appalachian Mountains. There's some folks, you know, that's a hillbilly. You hear the term hillbilly, you know. I don't think of that as being derogatory. Where my people's from, there's lots of hills, and what we call a holler. Now, you know, you call it a holler. It's a big old place, a big long expansive area, and it's really acoustic, you know. A holler is. And that's part of the reason why they call it a holler. You can holler from one side of it, and they can hear you hollering in the other side of the holler. You got me? I am one human that lives here, and I am passed down from many generations. And I've learned from these generations. I gathered around since I was a small child like you fellas here, gathering around old people and learning the ways and learning what they teach. And I go and I teach other young people these things. And I tell these stories. And the first story I'm going to tell you today is a story about our favorite marsupial here in North America. Our only one marsupial here in North America. Now, this is an old Cherokee traditional story about the possum, the wonderful possum. Now, there's lots of peoples here, you know, in the mountains, they pronounce things, you know, they use the S. And when they use the S, a lot of us ain't got the best teeth in the world, you know, so we whistle a little, you know, and it's a possum. That little possum there, he's a good feller, that possum is, you know, he's a kind little animal. You don't never see him too hateful. They might hiss at you, but he won't never bite you hardly. It's just rough to get a possum to bite you. But this is a story of the possum here. That's why he is the way he is. Way back in the day, you see, way back long ago, the animals could talk because there wasn't people around to tell them they couldn't. You know what I mean? This is before the peoples was here. Animals, they could talk to one another. And the possum at this time in his life was not the possum that we know today. It was quite a different animal entirely. The possum, he was a very loud and boisterous animal. Boisterous, that means he's full of it. What the old people say is full of it. That feller's full of it. Well, the possum, he was kind of full of it. And the reason why is because the possum, he had a big, beautiful, bushy tail. And I mean just gorgeous, big old flowing long tail, big old long hair on it. They said the hair is that long in his tail. And it was more than he could handle. They said it shined with the noonday sun. Beat all you ever saw. That little possum coming through there. And the wind. He liked to stand in places that were high up so the wind could blow his tail and he'd strike a pose. When he knew that other little animals was coming by, you know, let that tail be blowing in the wind. All the other little animals, they got kind of sick and tired of the possum going around and bragging about how pretty his tail was. They got kind of aggravated by it, so they held a council. Now, there's always, well, see, in all the old Cherokee stories, there's always a council meeting. They always have a meeting of the minds, and this ain't no different. The animals, they had their own council, and you know, all the smartest of the animals was there. Your majestic eagle, the Ohali, you know, he was there, and the gray horned owl, he's there. And they had some of the other smarter, the tricksters, the coyote, you know. He's a trick. They gathered around and had a council. They got to do something about possum because he's just getting to be too much. Too much, much too much. So they derived a plan and they set it in motion and they called in the cricket. And the cricket in the animal kingdom, the cricket's a barber, see. Now, you wouldn't think that the cricket be a barber and him be as little as he is, but I'm going to tell you what, he's swifty swift. Them old scissors, he can get after it, the cricket can. They devised him a plan, and they went and met up with Possum, and they says, Possum, they sent Coyote, because he's the best at tricking. Coyote, he comes up to Possum, he says, listen, Possum, he says, listen, we got a great thing going to happen. We're going to have a celebration on behalf of you and your awesome tail. And Possum says, well, son, it's about time. It's about time. I've been walking around this beautiful tail for years. Y'all just now acknowledging, you know. Well, they set the plan in motion. They told Possum, they said, well, you go over to Cricket's house this evening, and he's gonna just pretty up that tail. He's gonna make it look nice and shiny, brand new. And we're gonna have this party tonight on behalf of you and your awesome tail, and you're gonna get to show off for everybody. Possum tickled to death. I mean, he's saying, man, you know, about time these people's finally figuring it out. You know, I got it going on. So he goes to Cricket, and Cricket says, just lean back here, Possum, take you a nap. Take you a nap, rest yourself, you know. Possum does. He leans back in that chair. He says, I think I will. He takes him a nap. He wakes up, and his tail is covered from one end of it to the other with this real shiny pink ribbon. This big, beautiful bow tied right slap in the middle of it, you know. Possum, he wakes up and he looks down and he says, whoa, what are you doing, Cricket? Nobody can see my big, beautiful, bushy tail with this big, shiny ribbon on it. And Cricket said, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. That's for the big unfurling. We're going to have an unfurling. You're going to get up on the stage and you're going to jerk that ribbon, and that tail's just going to poof right out of there. And it's going to be everywhere. The people are just going to go ballistic. They're going to love it, you know. All the animals will be cheering and everything. Possum says, man, that is a super idea. What do I owe you? Oh, you don't owe me a thing. Just go on, you know. Possum goes on later that night, and they had a big stage set up. All the animals was there. Every little animal, you know. All the big birds was there. It's gathered out in this big crowd. Possum jumped up on the stage. He says, is everybody ready to see my big, beautiful, bushy tail? And all them critters says, ah, you know, they're cheering. And he says, that ain't good enough. Is everybody ready to see my big, beautiful, bushy tail? They says, yeah, you know. He says, all right. He sprawls out real big. He reaches back, grabs that ribbon. He jerks the ribbon off of his tail. Ah! He looked down. As stark bald as it could be. There wasn't a hair on it. Cricket done cut every hair on it. Possum looks straight up to the sky, says, oh! He passes plumb out right there on the stage with all 4 feet sticking straight up and drool coming out of his mouth. And from this day forward, Possum, he's a humble, noble little creature. He don't have no fur on his tail no more because it got to be too much for him. You see him and he's got a bald tail, just a bald slick as a ribbon, almost like a big rat. But he's got better PR. Most people like to see a possum coming. They don't really like to see a rat that much. But they do like to see, you know, very seldom you see a person go, oh, goodness, there's that possum. No, they're always happy to see him. But to this day, that possum, whenever it gets to be a little too much, he passed back out again just like he did that night. And his tail will stay bald from now on. The reason why is because he needed to learn a lesson. And the lesson in this is to be humble. To be humble. You need to always be humble no matter how blessed you are. You need to use that blessing to help other folks. Instead of going around toot your own whistle, you know. So that's the lesson Cherokee people wanted to hand down to their kids with this particular story.
If you have a tall tale you'd like to spin for posterity, we'd love to talk to you. We're the Maples History Center on the 3rd floor of the King Family Library. Love to work with you.